When a jogger discovered Bridget Shiel's bullet-riddled body in Oakland City Park, Atlanta wasn't just facing another homicide, it was staring into the abyss of calculated evil. 19, beautiful, an aspiring model with a portfolio full of dreams. But someone decided those dreams needed to die with her. They stripped her naked, executed her with precision, and discarded her among the trees like she was nothing. This wasn't a crime of passion or opportunity. This was methodical. This was revenge. Her boyfriend claimed innocence while a notorious Crip gang member lurked in the shadows of her final days. But which one pulled the trigger? This is the story of how a teenage model with everything to live for became the target of a killer who thought they'd never be caught. This is how justice finally came for Bridget Shiel. Atlanta isn't just the Hollywood of the South, it's also become a battleground for gang sets that migrated from the West Coast, bringing their colors, their codes, and their violence to the dirty South. The Crips didn't stay in LA. By the 2000s, they'd spread their reach across the country, planting flags in cities from New York to Miami. But Atlanta, that became one of their strongest footholds outside California. We're talking about multiple sets, the Rolling 60s, the 8-tray gangster Crips, the Hoover criminals, all carving out territory in metro Atlanta. Now, these weren't wannabes trying to copy what they saw in movies. These were the real deal, members who'd migrated from California or been put on by authentic sets. They brought the same structure, the same rivalries, and the same ruthless business model that made the Crips a household name. In Atlanta, the Crips weren't just about colors and hand signs. They controlled drug corners, ran prostitution rings, and didn't hesitate to body anyone who crossed their money or disrespected their reputation. The city's entertainment industry, all those rap studios and modeling agencies, became hunting grounds for recruitment and exploitation. See, when young girls like Bridget came to Atlanta chasing dreams, they walked right into a spider web. The same connections that could get you a legitimate modeling gig could just as easily pull you into escort work. And once you're in that life, you're dealing with people who don't play games. Cross them, try to leave without permission, or know too much, and you might end up like Bridget. The Atlanta Crips had their hands in everything. From the trap houses in East Atlanta to the strip clubs on the north side, they moved weight, they moved women, and they moved violence. By 2016, when Bridget's body was found, these sets were deep in the game, with members like Christopher Spencer already building reputations for being trigger-happy and stone cold. The Rolling 60s neighborhood Crips were among the first to establish serious operations in Atlanta. Coming straight from Los Angeles, they brought that West Coast gangster mentality to the South. In LA, the Rolling 60s were known for being one of the largest and most violent Crip sets. When they touched down in Atlanta, they didn't come to play, they came to take over. Their territory in Atlanta stretched across the southwest side from East Point to College Park. They set up shop in apartment complexes and neighborhoods where they could move their product without too much interference. The Rolling 60s weren't just slinging on corners, they had a whole operation going. Drug distribution, weapons trafficking, and a network of women working the escort game. But the Rolling 60s weren't the only ones making moves. The 8-tray gangster Crips, known as the ETG, carved out their own piece of Atlanta's criminal territory. These cats were particularly ruthless. Back in LA, they had beef with everybody, including other Crip sets. That same energy carried over to Atlanta, where they beefed with local gangs and rival Crip sets trying to muscle in on their territory. The ETG operated differently than the Rolling 60s. Where the 60s were more organized and business-focused, the 8-tray cats were pure chaos. They'd light up a block just to send a message. Their reputation for violence preceded them, and in Atlanta's criminal underworld, that reputation was everything. Then you had the Hoover criminals, another Los Angeles transplant that found fertile ground in Atlanta. The Hoovers had a unique position. They claimed Crip, but often beefed with other Crip sets. In LA, they'd been at war with traditional Crip sets for years. That tension carried over to Atlanta, where they found themselves isolated from other Crip sets, but still deadly effective. The Hoovers specialized in home invasions and armed robberies. They were the crew you called when you needed something taken by force. Their members were known for being unpredictable and extremely violent, traits that served them well in Atlanta's competitive criminal landscape. What made Atlanta perfect for these West Coast sets was the city's layout and culture. Unlike Los Angeles, where gang territories had been established for decades, Atlanta was wide open. There were opportunities to establish new territories, new markets, and new revenue streams without stepping on generations of established beef. The entertainment industry provided perfect cover. Atlanta's music scene was booming, and these gang members could blend in with the industry crowd while conducting their real business behind the scenes. They'd recruit young women through fake modeling opportunities, then trap them in escort work. They'd use recording studios as fronts for drug operations. They turned the city's biggest asset, its entertainment industry, into their personal ATM. By 2015, law enforcement estimated that West Coast gang members had established at least a dozen different sets across metro Atlanta. These weren't small operations. Some of these sets had hundreds of members, sophisticated drug distribution networks, and connections back to their home bases in California. The violence that came with these operations was systematic and brutal. When these sets beefed with each other or with local gangs, they brought West Coast levels of violence to Atlanta streets. Drive-by shootings became more common. Gang-related homicides spiked. The body count started climbing as these sets fought for territory and respect. Law enforcement was caught off guard initially. Atlanta police were used to dealing with local street gangs and drug dealers, not sophisticated criminal organizations with national connections. These West Coast sets brought military-style discipline to their operations, making them harder to infiltrate and prosecute. Christopher Spencer represented everything dangerous about this West Coast invasion. He wasn't some local dude who got caught up in the game. He was a stone-cold killer who'd been shaped by the streets of Los Angeles and brought that murder game to Atlanta. Spencer wasn't just Crip, he was Crip royalty, with connections and credibility that made him untouchable in certain circles. Spencer didn't roll solo. He was part of a larger network of gang members who'd migrated from California to set up shop in Atlanta. These weren't refugees from the West Coast, they were advanced scouts, establishing territories and operations for their home sets. They brought money, weapons, connections, and most importantly, they brought that West Coast mindset that saw violence as just another business tool. The connection between these West Coast sets and Atlanta's escort industry wasn't coincidental, it was strategic. Back in LA, many of these gang members had experience running prostitution operations. When they got to Atlanta, they saw an opportunity to apply those same techniques to a new market. Atlanta's entertainment industry provided perfect hunting grounds. Young women from across the South came to Atlanta chasing dreams of modeling careers, music deals, and acting opportunities. Many arrived with limited resources, making them vulnerable to predators offering easy money and industry connections. The gang members would approach these women through seemingly legitimate channels. They claimed to be music producers, photographers, or talent scouts. They'd offer modeling gigs, music video appearances, or party invitations. Once they had these women isolated and dependent, they'd gradually introduce them to escort work. This wasn't the traditional pimp-prostitute dynamic. This was organized crime using sophisticated recruitment and control techniques. The gang members would provide housing, transportation, and protection while maintaining complete control over their victims' lives and earnings. Bridget Shiel walked right into this web when she arrived in Atlanta chasing her modeling dreams. She was exactly the type of young woman these predators targeted, attractive, ambitious, and far from any support system that might protect her. Born and raised in Washington, D.C. by her grandparents, Jim and Beverly Toole, Bridget was described as a live wire with boundless energy. Beverly remembered her as full of life, dramatically expressive. If the sun was shining, she wouldn't just say, "The sun is shining," she'd exclaim, "Look at the day." But Beverly also explained that Bridget had gotten sadder as she grew older. She struggled with self-esteem, was teased mercilessly about her size, and despite making honor roll her first year of high school, she started skipping school, hanging with the wrong crowd, making dangerous choices. At some point, Bridget made her way to Atlanta, drawn to the city's entertainment scene. Local journalist Karen Greer noted that Atlanta is the new Hollywood of the South, the new Motown. There's a rap studio on every corner. Someone trying to go on to bigger and better things would naturally be attracted to what Atlanta had to offer. The transformation was striking. The girl who had been bullied about her appearance was now posing confidently for photographers, building what appeared to be a legitimate modeling career with promising prospects ahead. But the spotlight Bridget chased cast some dark shadows. A simple Google search revealed multiple backpage ads featuring her photos, offering escort services under the names Nastia and Spice. The discovery of these ads painted a more complicated picture of Bridget's life in Atlanta. This is where the streets get murky. In Atlanta's underground economy, the line between legitimate modeling and escort work gets blurred real quick. Young women come to the city chasing dreams, but they need money to survive while they're grinding. That's when predators step in, offering easy money for companionship that often turns into something much darker. And here's the thing about escort work in Atlanta. It's not independent contractors working alone. There's always someone taking a cut, someone providing protection, someone controlling the operation. Whether it's pimps, gang members, or organized crime, somebody's running the show. And if you're in that world, you're playing by their rules. The escort game in Atlanta was controlled by different factions, but the West Coast gang sets had been muscling in heavy since the early 2010s. They brought organization and violence that local operators couldn't match. When they wanted to take over an operation, they didn't negotiate. They eliminated the competition. These gang members used a combination of fear and false promises to control their victims. They'd promise protection from other predators while simultaneously threatening violence if their victims tried to leave. They provide housing and basic necessities while keeping their victims completely dependent and isolated. The Backpage ads featuring Bridget weren't just random escort advertisements. They were part of a larger operation controlled by gang members who saw her as property. The multiple aliases she used suggested she was working for someone who managed multiple women, rotating them through different personas to maximize profits. Bridget's grandmother Beverly had her own theory about how her granddaughter ended up in this life. She didn't think Bridget was doing it on her own free will. She believed the boyfriend must have gotten her into that and wouldn't be surprised if he talked her into it. The boyfriend Beverly mentioned was Kevin Kinney, older than Bridget with a record of jail time. Friends described their relationship as volatile, with whispers that Kevin had connections to gang activity. Karen Greer explained that Kevin was older and had spent time in and out of jail. There were claims from friends in the community that he was perhaps part of an underground organization, a gang. Now, Kevin's not claiming any set, but when you look at his pattern, older dude with a record, multiple women under one roof, possible connections to Bridget's escort work, that's textbook street level pimping behavior. Whether he was officially gang affiliated or just moving like someone who was, the result was the same. Bridget was caught up in a dangerous situation with dangerous people. The connection between Kevin and the larger gang ecosystem wasn't necessarily direct membership, but it didn't have to be. In Atlanta's criminal underworld, you didn't need to be jumped into a set to be connected to gang operations. There were associates, contractors, and freelancers who worked with gang members without being full members. Kevin's background suggested he was familiar with street life and criminal operations. His relationship with Bridget and involvement in her escort work put him in contact with the same networks that gang members controlled. Whether he was working for them, working with them, or just operating in their territory, the result was the same. Bridget was exposed to dangerous people who saw her as an asset to be exploited. Just months before her murder, Bridget made a disturbing 911 call requesting to place a restraining order on somebody. When asked if she had been assaulted, she confirmed yes and identified the person as her boyfriend. She reported that Kevin had hit her in the face, but ultimately declined to press charges. 2 days later, police would return to the same address, this time for a fight between Bridget and another woman, Brittany Olaka, the mother of Kevin's child. This wasn't just a love triangle. This was a powder keg waiting to explode. Before her death, Bridget was living with Kevin and the mother of his child, all three under one roof. Detective Wilson suggested that one could only assume that was the source of the acrimony and the domestic disputes. Having a current girlfriend and a baby mama under one roof is a recipe for disaster. But there was another wrinkle. Karen Greer revealed she spoke to a friend of Bridget's who shared that Bridget had told her she was pregnant. The friend said Bridget was very afraid and didn't even want to tell Kevin about the pregnancy. This conversation reportedly took place just weeks before her death. If true, a pregnancy would have further complicated the already volatile household dynamics. The friend who reported Bridget's pregnancy also claimed she was very afraid in the weeks leading up to her murder. This wasn't just typical relationship drama. There was genuine fear for her safety. The morning of May 31st, 2016 started with a grim discovery that would shake Atlanta's Oakland Park neighborhood. Just before 7 a.m., a man walking through the park spotted several stray dogs circling something in the grass. As he moved closer to shoo away the animals, what he found was the stuff of nightmares, the naked body of a young woman riddled with bullet wounds, abandoned in the early morning dew. The dogs had been circling her body, according to a local witness. They described how sad it was that the man walking through just shooed the animals away, but the damage to her dignity had already been done. The crime scene showed a picture of vulnerability and violation that would characterize the entire case. Atlanta homicide detectives flooded the scene within hours, but they were working from scratch. No ID, no clothing, no personal effects, just a body and the horrific story told by her wounds. Physical evidence was minimal, giving investigators few immediate leads to pursue. The autopsy revealed disturbing details about how she died. A detective later explained that several shots came from a straight-down angle, suggesting she was already on the ground, likely already dead, when someone stood over her and kept firing. This wasn't just a murder. It was an execution designed to send a message. The victim had not only been killed, but deliberately degraded. But it wasn't just the positioning that communicated this intent, it was the ammunition. The killer used what are called radically invasive projectiles, RIP bullets. These specialized rounds fragment upon impact, causing catastrophic internal damage, expanding as they tear through flesh and organs. They're designed for maximum damage rather than clean kills. It's important to note that average street criminals don't use RIP ammo. These bullets cost 4 times what regular ammunition does. When investigators see RIP bullets in a case, combined with the victim being left naked, someone was definitely sending a message. This was gang execution protocol, overkill designed to terrorize and intimidate. In the streets, when you see someone get bodied like this, everybody knows what time it is. This wasn't random violence. This was about power, control, and making an example. Someone wanted other people to see what happens when you cross certain lines. The use of RIP ammunition pointed to someone with serious criminal connections. These bullets aren't sold in regular gun stores. You need connections to get them. Someone with gang affiliations, someone who wanted to send a very specific message about what happens to people who cross them. The location where Bridget's body was found also carried significance. Oakland City Park wasn't random, it was visible, public, but isolated enough that the killer had time to stage the scene. This was someone who wanted the body found, but not too quickly. They wanted time for the message to set in before law enforcement arrived. On May 30th, 2016, Bridget shared Snapchat photos of herself dancing and having fun before heading out for the night. Around 10:30 p.m., she posted from a location not far from where her body would later be found, captioning it "too pretty to walk in the grass." Minutes later, she called a friend who later reported she seemed fine with nothing amiss. But something changed dramatically shortly after. Surveillance footage confirmed what witnesses reported. Around 11:30 p.m., Bridget was seen at a Shell gas station near the intersection of Rockbridge Road and Memorial Drive in DeKalb County. The footage showed her in the passenger seat of her own car, accompanied by 2 men. A witness described her as appearing extremely nervous during this encounter. This sighting is crucial. Bridget in her own car, but not behind the wheel, visibly distressed, accompanied by 2 unidentified men. In the streets, when someone else is driving your whip and you look scared, that's never a good sign. Something had clearly gone wrong between her cheerful Snapchat at 10:30 and this gas station appearance an hour later. The 2 men with Bridget at the gas station have never been publicly identified, but their presence suggests this wasn't a random encounter. Someone had taken control of Bridget and her vehicle, likely by force or coercion. The witness who described her as extremely nervous was seeing someone who knew she was in serious danger. 2 hours after that, at approximately 1:06 a.m., a resident near Oakland Park called 911 to report multiple gunshots. The timing and location of this call suggested she was shot there, not merely dumped at the scene. 5.5 hours after that, Bridget's body was discovered. The day after Bridget's body was found, authorities located her red Ford Fusion about 20 miles from the murder scene and about 2 miles from where she was last seen with the 2 unidentified men. The vehicle was abandoned near Stone Mountain. a location that would later prove significant. Inside the vehicle, investigators found a Sprite bottle and some of Bridget's clothing. The soda bottle would later prove to be the smoking gun that cracked the case wide open, though police kept this detail quiet during the early investigation. Police questioned both Kevin and Brittany shortly after the murder, but neither has been publicly named as a suspect. When contacted for comment, Brittany declined to give an official statement. Kevin, however, made a surprising claim. He said he has been cleared as a suspect by the police. After months of ignoring interview requests, Kevin Kinney finally agreed to speak on camera. Kevin began by saying that Bridget really meant a lot to him. When asked if police considered him a suspect, Kevin confirmed that they said he was the #1 suspect and that everybody thought he did it. Kevin confirmed the living situation. Bridget moved in with him and his child's mother, Brittany. He admitted it caused drama and a lot of animosity in the house. When confronted about Bridget's 911 call accusing him of hitting her, Kevin claimed ignorance, denying ever laying a hand on Bridget. Regarding the Backpage ads, Kevin insisted Bridget was already working as an escort before they met. He claimed, if anything, he was trying to get her out of that life. That's why he pulled her in, put her in his house to get her off the streets. When asked about allegations of gang connections, Kevin denied it. He said he didn't know anything about gangs at all, claiming the only thing he knew about gangs was what he had seen on the History Channel. Off camera, a producer noted that was 100% a lie. When asked about reports that Bridget was afraid for her life prior to her death, Kevin claimed ignorance. But Bridget's friends insisted she wasn't just afraid of life in general. She was scared of a specific threat. Kevin speculated that Bridget's murder was possibly due to her turning someone down. He theorized that she rejected the advances of some guy, and that's why she turned up dead. He elaborated that she had an aggressive mouth and could be really intimidating. For 2 years, the case remained unsolved, with Bridget's family left without answers or closure. Then in May 2018, a breakthrough. Atlanta police announced they had arrested Christopher Spencer, known on the streets as Crisco, and charged him with Bridget's murder. Christopher Spencer wasn't some random killer. He was a known Crip gang member with a reputation for extreme violence. At 28, he had already established a violent criminal record that painted a picture of a stone-cold killer who showed no mercy to his victims. Spencer was already in custody, serving a life sentence for the execution-style murders of Sylvia Watson and Samuel White in Stone Mountain, Georgia in October 2016, just months after Bridget's murder. He was also implicated in the shooting deaths of an 11-year-old girl and her 15-year-old brother in separate incidents. This dude was a problem on the streets. Spencer had that reputation for being trigger-happy and ruthless, the type of cat other gang members would call when they needed someone eliminated permanently. In the criminal underworld, Spencer was the go-to guy for wet work. The Stone Mountain murders that Spencer was already convicted for showed his method of operation. He and his crew targeted what they believed was a drug house, but they had bad information. Instead of finding drugs and money, they found an innocent family. Spencer's response was to execute everyone present, including children. That same cold-blooded approach was evident in Bridget's murder. The execution-style killing, the use of expensive ammunition, the public dumping of the body, all of this matched Spencer's pattern of extreme violence designed to send messages. 6 months after Bridget's death, on November 22, 2016, Spencer and several other Crip members targeted a home in Clayton County. The home belonged to a family with no known gang connections, but Spencer and his crew had received information, later determined to be false, that the home contained cash and drugs. Spencer and other gang members forced their way into the home on Libby Lane in Clayton County, Georgia in 2016. What happened there would shock even veteran law enforcement officers, ultimately resulting in the deaths of 2 innocent children, an 11-year-old girl and a 14-year-old boy. The Sprite bottle found in Bridget's car turned out to be the smoking gun investigators needed. DNA analysis from this bottle led to the identification of Christopher Spencer as a suspect, prompting authorities to charge him with her murder in 2018. The charges included malice murder, felony murder, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, and possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony. Spencer appealed his conviction for the couple's murder, but the Georgia Supreme Court upheld the ruling, ensuring he would remain behind bars regardless of the outcome in Bridget's case. But here's what still doesn't add up. What was Bridget's connection to Spencer? Authorities never publicly confirmed a motive. Were the two men at the gas station Spencer and an accomplice? Was there any link between Spencer and Kevin or Brittany? The streets have their own theories. Some say Bridget knew too much about certain operations. Others think she was trying to get out of escort work and somebody made an example out of her. What's certain is that in Atlanta's underground economy, crossing the wrong people or knowing too much can get you bodied quick. The use of RIP bullets, the execution style killing, the public dumping of the body, all of this points to a message being sent. In gang culture, when you want to terrorize a community or send a warning, you don't just kill someone quietly. You make it brutal, you make it public, and you make sure everybody knows what happens when you step out of line. The connection between Spencer and Bridget likely ran through Atlanta's escort industry. Spencer and his crew controlled various criminal operations across the city, including prostitution rings that trapped young women like Bridget. If she was trying to leave that life, or if she had information that could expose their operations, that would provide motive for her murder. The two unidentified men seen with Bridget at the gas station were likely Spencer and an associate. The timing suggests they intercepted her during what should have been a normal evening out, possibly luring her with false promises or forcing her into the car at gunpoint. Beverly Toole thinks of her granddaughter every day. She had a lot of growing up to do. Beverly just wishes she'd been given the chance to grow up. For Beverly, no arrest or conviction can bring back the vibrant girl who would describe a sunny day with such enthusiasm. Despite the arrest, many questions remain about the circumstances that led Bridget to that fatal encounter. What is certain is that a young woman with dreams of a better life had that life brutally cut short by someone who saw her as nothing more than a problem to be eliminated. Her story stands as a reminder of how quickly dreams can turn into nightmares when you're navigating Atlanta's underground world. The city's entertainment industry attracts young people chasing fame and fortune, but for every success story, there are countless others who get caught up in the darker side of the game. In the streets, Bridget's murder sent a clear message: step out of line, know too much, or try to leave the wrong way, and you might end up just like her, naked, shot full of holes, and left for the dogs. What are your thoughts on this story? Appreciate you watching. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button and make sure to subscribe for more.